Okay, let's get started. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining the Live with Leverage broadcast. I'm Jerry. I'm joined today by Barath and Shashank. Definitely please ask questions in the YouTube chat or on Telegram. With that, Barath, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's update. We have some exciting news for you today. We are launching our beta program. And let me just give you some information on how to digest it. The beta program will be officially kicked off on May 31st. The phase 1 is on Testnet. And it's a private beta, and we'll go into what it means and how it's going to be executed. We have chosen members from the community who have been very vocal and helpful, and who have sufficient background in development and finance as a starting pool. And as time goes, we will expand the pool. If you are extremely interested, or if you have some sort of expertise that you want to contribute, please contact us on Telegram, and we will consider adding you. The reason we are doing this is fairly straightforward. At the beginning, the number of issues will be so large that it's not very efficient to have a lot of users, since pretty much everyone will report the same issue. So we will have, if we had a general beta, we would have hundreds of people reporting the same issue over and over, and parsing through those issues itself would be the major chunk of our time. So we are going to start with a small amount of users and get most of the obvious issues out of the way. And as time passes and the flow of issues slows down, we will keep adding users. We will continue doing this until the number of issues falls below a specific threshold that gives us the confidence that we can put this beta on mainnet. And even after being on mainnet, it will still be labeled beta. You'll still be able to trade real coins and real Ethereum. But once the source is stabilized and audits have been completed, then we will drop the beta label. The way we are going to roll this out is essentially groups of features. And this is because we want to provide features in a specific order that enable that have dependency on each other. And the things that are most basic need to be working and ready first, because other things are built on the preceding features. So this is just an example. Some of this will change based on new information and priorities. But for example, the most basic things you want first is the ability to register, deposit, place and cancel orders, fill orders, check your balance. And the next thing you want to do is withdraw, and I'll explain what bonded withdrawal is in a second. Essentially, the bonded withdrawal is the ability for you to withdraw directly from the smart contract without actually having to go through Leverj. Once that is done, you need to be able to have a good API, including documentation, the ability to execute fraud proofs to ensure that the exchange is doing everything correctly, and exchange has not been compromised, and so on. And then we can add the other features such as support hardware wallet, mobile interface, and so on. And a lot of these priorities will also be decided by the beta program. People may suggest that some feature is prioritized and some other deprioritized based on how the product should flow. Even in the features, we will stagger them. It will be like a pipeline of different phases of each group. the first thing we want to do is nail down the function correctly. The product has to be the product has to work as expected, and the expectation of the users is something that the beta users um, will have a huge influence on. Initially, the UI will be rudimentary, in the sense there is no point in putting a lot of effort, getting it pixel perfect, having the right CSS, because large sections of the UI will probably change. And once the function is ready, while we are doing the functions of the next batch, we will polish the UI of the first batch. And when we in the next stage of the pipeline, we will document and we'll create educational videos regarding the feature whose UI was completed. And this is because we don't want the UI to look completely different from the videos. When people use the videos, it has to be relatable to what they would expect on the screen. The way we will coordinate this is essentially we'll have a kickoff and orientation with a small group, and we will work very closely with the team. They will work with the swapman, who is essentially running our product, and do everything, including having discussions, in-depth discussions, giving the feedback about what they liked, what seems out of place. So the early set of the beta participants would have actually a disproportionate influence, simply because they would see most of the issues first. And as time passes, they would submit bug reports, suggestions, any sort of issues, and we will have a dedicated Telegram group for these users. We will manage issues through Trello, so that you can just submit your issues there asynchronously, and then sync once a week to make sure that everything is flowing smoothly. At this point, I want to hand it off to Shashank, and to just show where the product is at. Just remember that even though we call this a private beta, anyone can actually go and check the website, test it out. It's public, but we just don't want to flood ourselves with 100 copies of the same issue. That's all it means with the private beta. As time passes, as I said, we will open it to more and more people, and eventually the ability for anyone to report issues, it will be open to the public. So with that, I'm handing it off to Shashank.
Thanks, Bharat. All right. So while I pull up the window and show you guys a little glimpse of what's coming, if anybody's any questions, maybe we'll give a minute. Just fire it away. Ask it away.
No questions presently.
Okay. All right. So I presume you can all see the screen. Now, the screen that you see is essentially the test site. This is where our beta program will unfold. The URL, as we had shared earlier on, and I think when I say earlier on, almost a month back, is test.leverj.io. And as Bharat rightly said, it's not protected by any means. If anyone wants to go and be part of the story, you surely can. You can go and look around. Everything that we do is out in the open, and we discuss openly. And in the same spirit, this one is enclosed by that means. Why is it private and limited? Bharat has already touched upon it. If you are one of those who wants to be in the private group and aren't in the private group so far, if you have a lot of experience building high performance software, or if you're a trader, where this kind of a trading software and trading platform is close to your heart, or you understand this well, please do reach out. We'll be very happy to include you and certainly talk to you and get your feedback. So at the moment, as you see this, there are a few things that are working and many others that are under development. This environment is part of our entire sort of CI/CD or continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline. We go through a sort of a modern day software development approach where we obviously develop, test things locally, move it to a development environment, and as a team, as we get comfortable and we have things which become a little robust, things get promoted to the test environment. And which is why you will see things coming to the test environment in chunks, if you may, or in drops that might be spaced out every few days. So that will be the cadence that we'll go with. Sometimes it will be more frequent. Sometimes you'll see some nightly updates if we have some big changes and big things tested. And sometimes it might be a few days before you see the new refresh. At this point in time, what you see up here and what is in our develop environment, there's a little gap, which is why we put a date out as 31st. There's a lot more that we've been working on. We want to make sure it's polished. We want to make sure it's working, and then get promoted here, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll. We'll be ready to get started right before we close the month. And then, of course, that's the beginning of the journey. So what we have here is the sort of group 1 features, if you may, that we want to focus on. The first bit is registration and sign in. So, I will just touch upon that a little bit, but there'll be features here. You see in here just the sign in button on my screen. The reason being I'm already signed in, so I don't see the register. And towards the end of this sort of presentation, I'll log out and show you guys a little glimpse of what that would look like too. Now, right next to that, you have the funds tab. So, this is where you'll be able to see your funds. So, you will be able to essentially look at your balances. Now, this one, like I said, is the past version. So, it does not have everything wired up. But yes, when you come on 31st, you will have this bit working. It's part of the essential flow that we want to make sure you have at your disposal. Now, why would this be important? You will make deposits. Deposits go to the custodian and managed via the smart contract. And then you will see that getting updated here. Now, obviously, behind the scenes, we are processing that through our system, making sure the corresponding accounts and the corresponding ledgers are updated. But what you want and what you care for as a user is to make sure that the funds do show up here and they show up correctly. So, a lot of testing, a lot of verification will be around that, of course. Now, once you have the funds, the most obvious and important part of the trading platform is trading, right? Placing orders. So what we are looking at is the ability to place orders both from the chart and from the sort of order form. And you will be able to do that. So, you certainly will be able to look through this chart, candlestick chart, and understand the prices and price movements. And then, of course, click right here and be able to place orders. Essentially, this gets auto-filled as you click through it onto the form. And we'll talk about more of the usability. How else can you use the chart? But yes, it will be available from the chart to go click and place orders very smoothly. As traders, a lot of people are very used to this. This is a very common sort of mechanism among traders to sort of use the chart as the primary mechanism to input orders. So hopefully you'll find this familiar and also give us a lot of good feedback in terms of what else you may want there or how things could be different or things could be smooth. So both in terms of features and bugs and also usability. Now, the same thing would also be available via the form. The form, of course, is standard. This is something, if you've been trading either in standard instruments or in the crypto world, you're probably super familiar with, where you would specify the price and quantity. And then, of course, take a side, whether you're buying or selling. Now, what you will see in the first lot is perhaps only certain types of orders. And if you recall, we are going through a tiered approach. We do spot first. From spot, we graduate onto futures. So futures is a little few months out. And here, what we'll focus on is the spot orders. And you'll start with limit orders. So you'll start seeing some part of this functionality come into play very soon. Now, all of this is already working. It's a matter of just wiring up everything, testing internally, which is what is going on in our development environment, then making it available to you very soon now. Now, obviously, once you place orders, right down here in the open orders table, if you may, you'll be able to see your orders. You'll be able to cancel them as they get matched. You'll end up seeing it here in the fills column. And then, once they're all done, matched and behind the historical stuff, you will see a bunch of things here as well. So, these are essentially what I would call the essential tabs for creating orders, looking at your matches and fills, and then of course the history. So all of that will be functioning. So this part will be available, which is of course part of the fundamental flow, right? Depositing, placing trades, and then of course looking at the status of trades. Now on the right side, if you look at it, this is more of a macro or aggregate view of the marketplace, of the exchange, right? So you will get to see the order book. This essentially is meant to show the depth of the order book. What are the different sort of bids and asks in the market at a given point in time. We will certainly make this available. Now it's possible some of these features, which we have a lot of plans for in terms of being very feature rich, will come in chunks. There will be an essential 1.1 version, if you may, that will be available as we kickstart the beta process, and then we'll continue to add more and more features. Some of them will be additional features that will add new capability, and some will be more just usability features, but nonetheless useful, where you can eyeball it quickly and from a glimpse get to see and understand the order book, for example. Now, what we do want from our beta users is giving us all that feedback, which is why we have the private and the focus group that tell us what you want to see, tell us what looks very right, and tell us what you think would be better off being different. Now, as Bharat already mentioned, obviously we are already aware of a lot of the usability bits that we need to work on, but we didn't want to over-optimize just right out the bat. So we will get all the feedback collated and start bringing it in our sort of updates or regular updates. Then, of course, the one that goes hand in hand with the order book is the recent trades. This is sort of like the running window of the activity on the exchange, or what are the recent trades have been, what quantity, what price. And again, from a trading standpoint, this would give you knowledge of the current activity with the order book. Now, there are other bits here which most likely will not be available at this point in time, like the fee setting bit. I think you'll be able to make some settings here, but it's possible that some of these bits might be left for a little later. Staking is certainly working, but the staking economy is more for the mainnet, and we want to play with it and focus on it perhaps as we continue to go forward. We might have some of these, but not everything. There is, of course, the burger menu on the right, which is about preferences and a few things you can do. There'll be some small settings available. You will be able to, for all those people who spend a lot of time in front of the machine, they care about the various sort of background colors or the entire sort of screen ambience, if you may, that they like. So yes, there will be two options available. One, the dark one that right now is on my screen, and then of course lighter versions for the fans of lighter versions. So you'll be able to sort of flip between themes, and then of course give us also feedback on the color variations and the more aesthetic bits, which of course becomes very important when you're in front of the screen for long periods of time. So things like those will also be available. And then within the sign-in bit, there'll be a few features that'll be available. As you create and register API keys, and I understand many of you may have been in the API keys conversations and the webinars in the past, which is incredibly interesting. So I would highly encourage, if you haven't, then go back and please do look at it. You will see how you can swap the various API keys and how you can have multiple API keys, and how it's so easy to just pick one up from your file system and get started with that identity. And then, of course, you'll be able to manage those as well from here, your private key, etc. Okay, so that's what's coming. That's primarily sort of the bit ahead of us. Now, as I had mentioned, the last bit is, of course, for new ones, you won't have this signed in like I'm signed in. And so you would probably be in a state which is more like this, right? With your register and sign in. and you'll obviously go through the registration flow. Now, do remember, as we had mentioned a few times already, that we will support multiple ways of registration in future. We completely understand that serious traders and serious cryptocurrency enthusiasts obviously want a very secure environment and perhaps use something like a hardware wallet, perhaps something like Ledger. But again, the focus is go step by step. So as the first baby step or the first step, we're going to be very focused on MetaMask, which is the the extremely friendly, lightweight, browser plugin based version, just to make sure at least we get the flows right. And then, of course, soon after we'll start having the other flows as well. So you will be able to register and be functional via the MetaMask route to start with. And then, of course, as you go through it, there would be a certain flow here that is coming soon enough. And when I say soon enough, is right away on day 0 as we start on the an end of the month. So that's what we've got. That's what is coming. We are very excited, as the sort of R&D team, product development team, and being part of this movement, making a DEX which is scalable, which is something that has fraud proofs built in, which has a lot of the features of a traditional centralized exchange, but offers the advantages of a decentralized exchange, is of course making us all super excited, and we are extremely thrilled and looking forward to many of you jumping in now and being part of the story and helping us make this product robust and good and ready for prime time. So that's all I've got. If anybody has any questions, very happy to take it. And of course, as Bharat said, we'll start with the kickoff meetings and more structured sessions very soon. It's right around the corner.
Thank you, Shashank. It doesn't look like there are any questions at this point. We'll wait another moment, but yeah, no questions. I think you guys did a great job sharing all that. So thank you all for joining today's broadcast. We'll post this webinar up on our YouTube channel later today. And please certainly ask questions on Telegram.
Before we, I think there was a question about UI, and let me try to answer that. Actually, let me share my screen here. The question was, what are your intentions with the UI? And what we believe is that UI is continuously evolving function. And while we know a few things, what makes a good UI, which I'll share in a second, as the product evolves, as new features are added, the UI has to evolve to accommodate these new features. To start with, for example, we are aware that the user's eyes are focused in certain areas. So, for example, near the bid and ask, recent trades, this is a, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is where a lot of the traders who trade from the order book, their eyes are focused on this, and we could enhance the enhance that information by maybe changing the font size, changing colors, and so on. Traders are also focused on the chart and usually the last bar, and it would be good to be able to have a data box where when you move the cursor, the information is updated and things of that nature. So there are things we can constantly add to make the cognitive burden, to reduce the cognitive burden of the user. We do realize that, and that actually is a tedious piece of work. It's very it is a lot of attention to detail. It's a lot of polishing. It's a lot of iterations. It's not something we can start with, because our main goal for the first release is to get the whole flow, get the product running, and to give you guys a feel of what it feels like to trade on a DEX that feels like a centralized exchange in terms of latency and performance and so on. Just to give you an example, I will try to place an order here. Let's see if this works. That was it. You cannot have this sort of performance on any other decentralized exchange. So all I have to do is just click Alt or Option and just click on whatever price, and my order is sent. It's already I can see it in open orders. To cancel, I just click on the X and it's gone. This sort of speed, you only find in centralized exchanges. We wanted to create this first. We wanted to show you the power of our plasma technology. And once that is done, we can then do the polishing of the UI. So if you can see the significance of what we've done, have your funds absolutely safe, but you can trade with the safety of with the speed of a centralized exchange. That is essentially the product. And right now, this is just a spot exchange. You'll be able to do we'll be able to do futures as well, and really any sort of derivatives which perform at the same speed as a centralized exchange. And people who traded on our other exchanges such as CoinPit have seen the other features we have, which is when your order fills, we generate take profit and stop loss orders automatically. The stops are filled atomically. All of those features we will introduce in Leverj as well. So just the feel, the latency, the smoothness, the ability to trade without going through all kinds of hoops with the signing for each order, all of these things that you see in DEXs. We wanted to eliminate that pain because we are traders ourselves, and we want, when you're watching a chart like this, you see a signal, you really have to act. And if you have to go through a bunch of steps, then the market sometimes moves, and if it moves, it's a loss. It's a loss of potential profit. So we just this is where we want to start, and the UI will keep getting polished as the product evolves. Any more questions? No. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I guess we can conclude today's webinar, and this will be recorded. We will, as you guys try it out, I'm sure more and more people will be interested and have more questions, and we are looking forward to answering it all.
Great. Thank you, everyone.